Hi, I'm Jay Phelan. Let's learn some biology. This is going to be my last video about our complete theory of kindness. And in it I want to tell you about some research that's experimental, and it's really cool because it illuminates a bunch of interesting aspects of our theory pretty nicely. The experiments come from economics, but you should never ever lose sight of this fact, which some people do, which is that whether or not they're aware of it, everything that economists study is human behavior. It's not interest rates, it's not inflation, taxes, bonds, stock markets. It's human behavior. How do people deal with risk? How do people make plans and that sort of thing? I'm going to describe some insights that have been spurred by one line of experimental investigations, and they make use of a type of game, an experimental setup called the Ultimatum Game. Essentially what the Ultimatum Game does is this. It's looking at how an economic interaction between two people works. You're going to share some resource, and people have a little bit of volition about how is it going to play out. So here's how the Ultimatum Game works. You start with two players. There's $40 to be split up. So the $40 just comes from somewhere else. I give you $40 and you're going to split it up. The two players have different roles. One of them is the proposer. The proposer is going to make an offer of how to split up the money. The decider says yes or no. If the decider says yes, then they get the money, it's split up, they take it away, that's that. If the decider says no, nobody gets anything. So here are the two options for the proposer. The proposer can take option one, which is $35 for me, the proposer, and $5 for you, the decider. Or they can choose option two, which says $15 for me, $25 for you, the decider. Then the decider is going to say yes or no. So if the decider says yes, then we do that split. If the decider says no, then everything goes away, people leave, nobody gets the money. Think about this. If you were the proposer, put yourself in that position, a little thought experiment. If you're the proposer, which option are you going to propose? The 35 for you and 5 for them, or 15 for you and 25 for them? Seriously, think about it. Which one would you do? Maybe write it down, jot it down. Are you going to do option one, 35 for you, 5 for them? Option two, 15 for you, 25 for them. Now, I want you to imagine, new thought experiment, now you're the decider. So somebody else is going to make a proposal. Let's say the proposer says 35 for them, 5 for you. Now, I want to know, you're the decider. What do? Do you say yes or do you say no? Seriously, write it down. So the proposer proposes to you 35 for them, 5 for you. Now it's all up to you whether or not this is going to play out. What do you say, yes or no? Seriously, come on, write it down. The Ultimatum Game was created in 1982, and classical economics tells us that the premise isn't even that interesting. People thought, why even bother with something like this? People behave rationally, people maximize their utility. Typically what that means is people do whatever is going to make them the most money. Therefore, in this ultimatum game, they couldn't imagine why anyone would do anything except for 35 for me, 5 for you. They're not going to make any generous offers, 15 for me, 25 for you, because that would be irrational. Similarly, on the decider's side, they thought, well, no one's going to say no ever. Why would you say no? You destroy the pie, nobody gets anything. So economists said everybody's going to do the same thing. Proposer says 35 for them and 5 for the decider. All the deciders say yes, they take their money, they say thank you. Biologists, on the other hand, though, right? You've been a biologist now for several weeks. We know that organisms are the products of evolution. Organisms maximize fitness, not utility. What is fitness? Fitness is your relative reproductive success compared to everyone else in particular environment you're in. We also know that humans are reciprocal altruists. This is very rare in the animal world, but we can get tremendous fitness benefits by having friends. We do nice things for them, we store goodwill in them, and then they pay back the favor. We get huge benefits, but we're very vulnerable. Whenever you do the nice thing, they can take advantage of you. That's the world that biologists are thinking about. They imagine, hey, if we're doing the ultimatum game, lots of people are going to make generous offers. You want to store goodwill in the world. It's important also that people are going to be nice to you, so you don't want to be perceived as selfish. So we think that there are going to be a lot of generous offers. We also think that many people will even say no to the $5 because that says, hey, this other person, not a good reciprocal altruism partner. When we actually do the ultimatum games, what do we find? Well, we find out that about a quarter of the time, people make the generous proposal. 15 for me, 25 for you. Way more than economists ever would have expected. In other words, those people are giving away money to someone else. Why? Because they need to be perceived as a good trading partner, as not selfish. They also are wary that in this world of reciprocal altruists, there's a high likelihood if you say $5 for you, they're going to say no and you get nothing. And on the responses, we see that the deciders, more than 10% of the time, they say no. In other words, they turn down $5. They turn down free money. They could take it, and with that free money, you can have an orange chicken bowl, right? And you're going to say no to that? How good does that look? Oh, man. I asked, first time I did this in a class with a large group of people, I said, all right, how many people, when they had written down what they were doing in the offer, we actually played these games. I said, who said they would turn down the free money, the orange chicken bowl? A bunch of people raised their hand, and I asked someone, I said, why'd you say no? Are you rich? You don't need money? And he said no. As he's talking, veins are like popping out of his head. And he said, because it's a freaking disgrace. And it was pretty raw, but his point was that's selfish. That's not cool. And I'm willing to pay $5 to punish that person. Neurobiologists have looked at the brains of people while they're doing an ultimatum game. Look at what happens if you are doing this with a partner and the partner makes a selfish or stingy choice. We can see which parts of the brain become more active. The brain response when someone makes a stingy offer to you is the same brain response that you see when someone is socially excluded, when someone is treated unfairly, when you see a loved one in pain. I don't know how they do those experiments. We're going to inflict pain on your loved one and measure your brain. Anyway, but the point is, it's the same brain state. So you actually are feeling that kind of stress when someone is stingy to you. From the economist's perspective, the unexpected results that we see in ultimatum games are these, that A, some people make generous offers when we wouldn't expect anyone to. 2, some people turn down free money. We would not have expected those if people were simply maximizing their utility. But what we see is that that's exactly what they do. Now, we're going to see that if you look at some variations on the ultimatum game, we can even see that there's strong evidence that the reason we see these unexpected things, the generous offers and the rejections of money, are because human brain machinery is built to maintain relationships. That's what is important and significant to us. Whenever you're trying to interpret results like this, you need to think about alternative hypotheses. What else could explain this? Maybe just people don't understand the game, or maybe some percentage of people have just learned to be happy giving away money, or maybe some people don't ever want money that they haven't earned. I don't know, but you should be thinking about what's an alternative explanation for this. And then how could we test between that explanation of what we see and between what we actually saw? So let me tell you a few different variations of the ultimatum game that people have run in order to look, can we change the experiment slightly such that we get people to be more generous? Can we change the game slightly so that people become less generous? Here's the first one. We'll look at 4 different variations on the game. What if instead of the proposer deciding on which of those 2 options to do, you still have a proposer and a decider, but what if instead a computer with a random number generator making the decision, the computer decides what the split will be. So now you're the decider and the proposer's sitting there, but the computer decides, okay, $35 for the proposer, $5 for the decider. What do you say now? Previously, you might have said, no, that's a stingy offer. Now, what happens? You say, yeah, sure. Everyone accepts the $5. We prefer money to no money, and we don't gain anything from a fitness perspective by punishing a computer. With these alternative hypotheses, there shouldn't be any difference whether it's the computer making the call or the actual proposer doing it, but we see a dramatic difference. Here's another variation on the game. You might think we're doing this here in an industrialized country in the US. It maybe means something just peculiar to how we feel about money and how our culture values kindness or whatever. What if we do the same ultimatum game, but we do it in different cultures where they don't have the same cultural norms? Well, people have done this. They've done it in at least 16 different cultures all around the world. Some hunter-gatherer societies, some foragers, horticulturalists, pastoralists, a whole range of different societies. Here's what we see. We see what economists would call irrational behavior in the form of extremely generous offers, also irrational behavior in the form of rejections of money. It's the norm across every society where we've looked at this. So the gray bar there shows you what the average offer was. They allowed them in some of these variants. They say, well, instead of just having the two options, you can pick how much to offer. But it's the same gist that you see people being more generous than we would have expected if they were simply maximizing how much money they could have. So people's generous behavior is cross-cultural. People's willingness to pay a cost to punish the stingy, also cross-cultural. That means, I think, that these results say something general about humans. Here's a third one. What if we do the same ultimatum game, but for the proposer, when we say, okay, you've got to decide, there's a decider somewhere, here's a picture of them. You are making the proposal, and here's who you're playing with. So here's your partner. How much are you going to propose for her? What do you think happens now? What are you going to propose? When we make people aware, here's who you're playing with, we give them information about that person, more people propose the generous split. What's going on there? Well, we think that it's triggering things in your brain. You're seeing the other person, and the reality of reciprocity, establishing a reputation, all of that becomes more real. And we wouldn't see this if one of the other alternative explanations we had come up with were responsible for what's going on. Let me give you one additional way that we could modify the game. What if I say, okay, we're going to have a proposer, we're going to have a decider, and now you're the proposer. The only difference now is that I'm going to make your offer public. In other words, I'm going to post big photos of everyone in class outside of our classroom, and I'm going to put a big label on each one, generous or stingy. I don't want to be mean to this guy. Could go the other way around. Maybe she was stingy, maybe he was generous. But I'm going to post these. We're going to leave them up outside so that everyone is going to see that your offer makes you generous. I don't even have to say stingy. I could say, here's the game we played. This guy says 35 for him, 5 for you. Now imagine that, or I put a whole group photo and I say, these are the people who made the generous offers, or these are the people who made the stingy offers. Think about it. When you're the proposer now, and there's going to be a big picture of you up on the wall, what are you going to do? If you were going to do the 35 for you, 5 for them, are you a little bit inclined maybe to think, I'm going to do the 15 for me, 25 for them? That's what we see. People become more generous as it becomes more public. With our alternative hypotheses, you wouldn't see that change. Were the economists right to be perplexed about the ultimatum game and think of these behaviors as irrational? They're only irrational if you have this model of human behavior that is not what biologists would have told us that we should expect. Biologists say humans are the result of evolution. We maximize fitness. Reciprocal altruism has tremendous fitness value, but you have to keep track of who the generous people are, who the selfish people are. You have to manage your reputation so people perceive you as generous. All those things are very important, and our brain is built so that we can be good at that. Those are adaptations like anything else. So they're not irrational behaviors. They're exactly what we would expect. These emotional responses we feel, it's a freaking disgrace, or that warm, nice feeling when someone does the generous thing for you. These emotional responses, justice, gratitude. They reflect the reciprocal calculations that are going on in our brain, and they ensure more fair play. They ensure that people behave in ways that are going to be consistent with them getting the benefits from reciprocal altruism. So there you have it.